Hello, my name is Wendy Hurlbert, and I'm the President and CEO of Life Sciences BC. Welcome to our third annual Career Connect Day presented by BioTalent Canada. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from within the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I would like to acknowledge that our speakers today are joining us from other unceded Indigenous territories across this beautiful province and country. We are thrilled to have you join us today to learn about the opportunities within British Columbia of the life sciences sector. There are almost 800 registrants in attendance, which is by far turning this into our largest conference that Life Sciences BC has ever held. And we have attendees from all across Canada, Belgium, France, Germany, India, Iran, Ireland, Italy, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, Poland, Switzerland, Thailand, Turkey, the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, and the USA. So welcome to you all. We are thrilled to show a piece of British Columbia's life sciences ecosystem to you today. We also know that there are over 560 students who are interested in careers in life sciences to meet with our more than 53 companies that are in attendance. So we really hope you take the opportunity today to connect with each other, meet each other, and learn about the opportunities that you may have in collaborating or working together in the future. A little bit about the life sciences sector in British Columbia. We're grounded in a long history of world-class science within our academic and research institutions. BC is home to over 2,000 life sciences organizations employing almost 20,000 people, and our sector is continuing to have double-digit growth. The life sciences sector continues to be well positioned to positively contribute to the economic recovery and competitiveness of British Columbia as we make our way through this pandemic. While also creating jobs and growing, we're developing innovative product solutions and services to address the complex issues facing not only Canada's healthcare system, but those of global countries. Critical to achieving these goals is ensuring that we attract, develop, and retain high-quality talent, which is exactly what today is about. When we began developing this event with BioTalent Canada in early 2020, we had no idea that we would be launching what has become the largest life sciences-focused career event in Canada, and we're thrilled that you all are a part of it. So once again, we're happy to be a catalyst for advancing employment opportunities with employers, helping new grads meet employers, secure employment, or if you're just looking for new challenges, hoping that you connect with some people that will spark some new ideas and lead you down some exciting journeys throughout your career. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, whom without their support, this event would not be possible. Our presenting sponsor, BioTalent Canada, our event sponsors, Admare Bioinnovations and Chinook Therapeutics, our session sponsors, Stem Cell Technologies, speaker sponsors, Evonik and Cardium, networking sponsors, Aurinia Pharmaceuticals and Canadian Alliance for Skills and Training in Life Sciences, aka CASTLE, our technology sponsors, Abcelera and Xenon, and our event supporters, Clinical Trials BC, Michael Smith Health Research BC, Northeastern University, the Toronto campus, Life Labs, and Thrive Health. In addition to our sponsors, who all have booths in the exhibit hall, we also have exhibitors who are Amgen, Aspect Biosystems, Capilano University, Innovate BC, Interior and Northern Work Integrated Learning, Jersey's Corner, New Beta Innovation Canada, Mitex, Pharma Inventor Inc., Venture for Canada, Verogen Biotech, and Zymeworks. All of these sponsors and exhibitors have virtual booths, which we encourage you to visit. While the expo is scheduled as a dedicated session from 3 to 5 Pacific time, the expo is available all day for networking, so please don't hesitate to connect with each other. And finally, just a few housekeeping items before we start our presentations. You're encouraged to update your profile if you haven't already with a picture and bio, which will be available for all the registrants to see. This can be done by clicking on your name in the top right corner of the screen. If you have any questions or need any assistance, please drop by the info desk in the virtual lobby where there are FAQs and helpful tips. In addition, you can email events@lifesciencesbc for further assistance. Please check the agenda where you'll find information about the sessions and their speakers and the scheduled networking opportunities. Along with the scheduled networking opportunities, please reach out to people throughout the day that you're hoping to connect with. During the event, there are numerous opportunities to connect with fellow attendees, exhibitors, and speakers, with the main focus of this event being connecting. Of course, if I haven't said it enough times, we encourage you to take the opportunity to meet with people through engaging with the Q&A, through the chats, direct messaging, participating in the networking sessions, and visiting the expo areas where you'll learn about all of the organizations that have booths and are able to book meetings. With every interaction you have, you earn points. So we like to bring a little gamification and fun into this event. So there will be Starbucks gift cards awarded to the top 10 most active attendees after the event, and you can check out the leaderboard to see where you stand. Finally, we encourage you to post on social media using our handle lifesciences_BC and the hashtag LSBC talent throughout the day. We hope you have a fantastic day. Please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us throughout the day if you have any questions. In addition, the platform is open for 30 days, so you can keep your connections going even beyond today. And now I'd like to move to our keynote address in the first session of the day presented by BioTalent Canada. I'd like to introduce Rob Henderson, the President and CEO of BioTalent Canada. Rob, who just turned on his camera, is a seasoned executive with more than 25 years of private and public sector management experience. He's transformed BioTalent Canada into an in-demand partner, policy influencer, and project leader that brings together the largest national bioeconomy network in Canada. Under Rob's guidance, BioTalent Canada has engaged with government, employers, associations, post-secondary institutions, immigrant-serving agencies, and service providers. Together, this dynamic network strengthens skills, connects job-ready talent to industry, and creates opportunities. Its proven performance provides industry with funding, HR resources, and labor market intelligence to help companies successfully build their teams. Rob and BioTalent Canada have been invaluable partners to Life Sciences BC and our Life Sciences member companies who have leveraged BioTalent Canada programs to accelerate the attraction, development, and retention of their talent base. Rob is an extremely passionate leader, and he and the BioTalent Canada team work tirelessly to enable and advance talent in the bioeconomy across Canada. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Wendy. I appreciate it. Just wanted to say, you extolled a lot of the virtues of BioTalent Canada. We would be nothing without our partners, including Wendy and Life Sciences BC. We have a long-standing great partnership with them, and it's great that it's culminated in Career Connect Day. And we're ecstatic to be here. So thanks very much for everyone for coming to today's session, which is facing the bioeconomy's impending talent shortage head-on. So as Wendy said, I'm Rob Henderson, and I'm President and CEO of BioTalent Canada, and I'll be giving you a little bit of a keynote framing today's topic, and then I will be moderating the panel discussion a little later, and I will be introducing our distinguished panelists in just a few minutes. So for those of you who are unaware about what we do at BioTalent Canada, we really support the people behind life-changing science. We're focused on igniting the industry's brain power and bridging the gap between job-ready talent and employers. And we ensure the long-term agility, resiliency, and hopefully sustainability of one of Canada's most vital sectors, which is the bioeconomy. So those are the reasons we're here today. Canada's bioeconomy used to operate in relative anonymity publicly, but of course that all changed when the pandemic hit. And of course, the spotlight was cast on the industry and the important work that we all do. It's responsible for developing vaccines, performing life-saving medical research, as all of you know, innovating diagnostic device, inventing personal protective equipment, ensuring food security. And in broader ways, we represent the bioenergy and bioindustrial and agribio sectors, which are all part of the biotechnology family. But even though the spotlight has been placed firmly on the industry, even though it's thriving at a time when a lot of other industries are struggling, as we've seen, the pipeline of talent is running low. And if current trends continue, the industry will face an untenable talent shortage by the end of the decade. So I'm going to be starting my presentation now. This data that I'm going to be presenting comes from BioTalent Canada's most comprehensive labor market information study ever. All of the reports, which include a national outlook, a demand and supply report stretching to 2029, 5 regional reports, and 3 metro hub reports or cluster reports, they're all available for download at biotalent.ca. So everything that I'm talking to you is a little bit of a synopsis of all of that information. So I'm going to share my screen now. just so I can start my presentation. Just one second. Here we go. And there we are. So we're going to be talking a little bit about about this comprehensive labor market survey that BioTalent Canada conducted over the last year. So it's important to talk about methodology. We very much are aware that our audience are scientists. They deal with facts, they deal with hypotheses, and they deal with statistics and good evidence. So we realize that that's important. So this study has actually taken us 2 years to conduct, all the midst of in a pandemic. So in 2019, we started with an environmental scan with 3 national roundtables with 119 attendees, which included academics, employers, as well as students and some employees of the bioeconomy. In 2020, we conducted the most comprehensive survey we've ever conducted of 573 different companies, which made us our baseline, which we ended in March 2020. As we all know, that was just before the pandemic hit. We also did a job posting analysis of over 10,000 jobs, over 138 in-person interviews, and 1,531 career perception surveys. And then in 2020-21, in the midst of COVID, we integrated some COVID-19 pulse surveys in there, as well as wage subsidy surveys from the many programs that BioTalent Canada does. So now in terms of the first thing we did was revamp the definition of the bioeconomy. Now, obviously, when we're talking about life sciences, we're really talking about biohealth, which comprises it's the biggest employer of the bioeconomy. Some 70% or so of jobs are within the life sciences community across Canada. But of course, we also have 3 other subsectors that are sometimes overlooked, but also are included in our definition of the bioeconomy, which is agrobio, bioenergy or biofuels, as well as the bioindustrial sector. And of course, these are all 4 subsectors are integrated within the green economy. Many of them operate within sustainable development techniques. And of course, completely surrounded by commercialization, which is the whole objective of the bioeconomy, is the commercialization of its products and services. And then at the heart, of course, is bioscience, research, and development. So this is largely the definition that we use whenever we're talking about the bioeconomy. And it certainly is the one we used with regards to the survey and the research that we did on this particular case. So a few things that you need to know about our LMI, or Labor Market Intelligence releases. We've done it both nationally, regionally, and even through cluster. So you'll see that we have here, these are all available on biotalent.ca, that we have our national report that's available on our website. We also have a demand and supply outlook. It's the first time we've ever produced that. That actually will give you a synopsis of some of the numbers I'm going to be sharing with you today. It's a forecast for the skills and talent availability in the bioeconomy until 2029. It's the first ever time we've ever been able to do that. And the results were staggering, frankly. And I'm going to be pleased to share them with you in just a moment. For many, because we're keenly aware that this event is hosted by LSBC, and that British Columbia is a focus, even though we know it's national and even international, as Wendy mentioned. We have some focus reports as well, 5 regional, including Western Canada, which I'll be talking a little bit about today. And then we even have a cluster report, which shows exactly what the situation and on talent and skills are within the Metro Vancouver area. So all of these are freely available for you, and we welcome you to go and download them and leaf through them. I think whether you're an employer or a job seeker, this is really, really important because it tells you exactly what the environment is that you're going to be either trying to find talent for your company or trying to find and advance your career. So let's talk about some numbers, shall we? 2 to 1. 2 to 1 is exactly the job numbers, the ratio of job openings to potential candidates by 2022. What that means is there will be 2 jobs for every 1 candidate that's able to fill them in all spheres within the bioeconomy by this year, 2022, by the end of this year. That's pretty dire when you're talking about, this also means that it's a bit of a seller's market, meaning that as a job seeker, there are going to be more jobs available to qualified job seekers, and that's a very key point, is qualified job seekers by the end of 2022. So that's our forecast based on the data that we've had. Unfortunately, things don't get better as the years progress. By 2029, we expect that gap to actually increase to 4 to 1. In other words, there will be 4 job openings for every 1 qualified candidate by 2029. What does that mean? For a job seeker, it means you have to understand what qualified candidate means and what qualifications are going to be in demand. And we'll go through a few of those in a little while. What that also means is that employers are going to be competing with each other and competing with other industries for talent like never before. And these, again, are all statistics that we've come up with through our interviews based on the business objectives that the bioeconomy companies told us, what they're expecting to do in terms of hiring with their own businesses between now and 7 years from now. So that's pretty dire. What does that really mean in terms of numbers? That means there are going to be 65,000 vacant jobs by 2029 in Canada's bioeconomy. For Western Canada, that included in this number is 19,000 jobs. 19,000 jobs that are vacant, that cannot be filled if nothing is done, if we do nothing between now and 2029. For Vancouver alone, that's 5,000 jobs. 5,000 unoccupied bioeconomy jobs. So let's dig down and see what these numbers mean and how we came up with these. The key findings that we came from the Labor Market Intelligence Report is that, as I mentioned, there's going to be a severe talent shortage by 2029. And companies are going to have to become very, very creative in terms of being able to put forward their business objectives. In our past LMI findings, it used to be that capital, access to capital was the #1 need for bioeconomy companies in Canada. And it stayed that way for over 15 years. And the second followed shortly by the second objective, which was usually access to talent. Those priorities have flipped. Access to talent is now by far the #1 priority of companies in Canada. And it's hugely, and as this event itself, over 800 attendees shows, it's the #1 priority for companies. We have a huge skills gap, particularly in biomanufacturing. It's not limited to biomanufacturing, but particularly in biomanufacturing. And don't forget, all of these studies were done, and this survey was done largely before the federal government started saying that Canada was going to recapture its capacity to manufacture its own vaccines. So that capacity, which will require talent, obviously, if it is recaptured across Canada in the coming months and years, will only widen that gap. It'll only more keenly, that pain of the lack of talent will be even more keenly felt, because it will be adding that demand of vaccine development on top of it. Our workforce diversity in the current bioeconomy is shockingly low. I will be sharing some numbers for that. This is really surprising, considering that the bioeconomy thrives within the mosaic of Canada, and Canada's immigration policies, and our openness, and our multiculturalism, and our sensitivity, we'd like to think, to underrepresented groups. But unfortunately, the diversity and inclusion problem that has plagued many industries, and certainly the bioeconomy for years, has gotten worse. Career awareness is low. We don't do a great job of doing PR outside our own industry. We don't tell a lot of school kids and a lot of people in colleges and universities that there are great careers, and not just technical careers in sales and marketing and industry agnostic skills. We need to get better at that. And also, of course, these are all companies, so we need middle management, and there's a huge lack, and there's going to be a shortage of middle management skills across. So let's talk about the bioeconomy in and of itself. So the bioeconomy has 12,000 establishments across Canada. Of those, that means there are actually 3,800 of those companies within Western Canada. That's Alberta and British Columbia. And as well, 83% of these companies have less than 50 employees. So it's an industry largely made out of small and medium-sized enterprises. And that poses its own challenges, as we'll explore. 69% of all companies in Canada's bioeconomy actively engaged in research and development, which is not surprise, obviously, that R&D is the heart of the bioeconomy in terms of what we do and our business objectives. And then this final one is also sheds a little light as to why some of these problems are so exacerbated in today's economy. And that's that 70% of the companies right now operate without HR. That's largely because they're small and medium-sized enterprises, as you see with the 83% statistic. That means they don't have expertise in human resource management, in people, in finding and retaining people. It's a huge issue. We've got a lot of scientists doing HR, and they're ill-equipped to do it. And the fact that they are ill-equipped is hurting the bioeconomy in terms of finding and retaining the best and the brightest. So let's talk about the talent. There are 200,000 workers in Canada's bioeconomy, as we've defined it. Biohealth constitutes 58% of those, bioindustrial 21%, agribio 14%, and bioenergy 7%. Of those 200,000 employees, 45,000 employees are in Western Canada, Alberta, and BC. That's a significant chunk of employment and a significant chunk of jobs that obviously they're going to be vacant here in Western Canada as well. In terms of national dispersion, 28% you'll see in Western Canada, 28% of all of the companies find themselves in Alberta and BC. It's not surprising considering the spirit of innovation that we all know that exists out here in the West. But as you can see, this is a national dispersion. It's not completely surprising in terms of the bioeconomy. The three largest players are in the clusters of the Greater Toronto Area, Montreal, and Vancouver, as you probably already all know. So in terms of the talent, what is the talent out there? What roles are they occupying? Right now, R&D fully is the largest department or talent pool. It employs 26% of the employees are actively engaged in research and development. Manufacturing and production, not that far behind at 22%. And then, of course, remember, these are all businesses. So there's a lot of management, finance, admin, sales, marketing, et cetera. All of those constitute 14% of the bioeconomy. So what are the top skills that are required? When we polled and surveyed all of these employers, it's very important to find out what the top skills are required. Why? Because, you know, in terms of the bioeconomy, credentialing largely doesn't work. And what I mean by that is that saying that simply you have a bachelor's degree or a diploma gives you a level of science acumen, but it's a skills-based economy. The things that we produce, especially in the life sciences industry, are highly regulated. But with the exception of veterinarians and doctors and pharmacists, our skills and our professions are not regulated at all. So it's a very skills-based economy. It's a skills-based industry. So the top skills are required. Problem solving, 86% stated that problem solving skills are one of the top skills that are required by these companies. Collaboration, because the R&D and the science is done often in teams. Communication, 75%. Adaptability, 73%. Interpersonal skills, because in small companies, interpersonal skills and communications are so integral to success. And then all sorts of them. We're 14 different ranked skills as we go. And they're found in terms of the skills, and they're detailed in the report. And when they see here, you see that unicorns are very rare. Unicorns meaning that swan, that type of person that you get that has it all. Not only do they have the technical acumen of a STEM background and a science education, but they have all of these success skills, these essential skills. And what's interesting, if you'll notice, none of the top skills ranked were technical in nature. That doesn't mean that there isn't a lack of technical skills. There are. Those skills are highly coveted and highly prized within the bioeconomy. But the top skills that are required that sometimes employees don't come equipped with are essential skills. These are industry agnostic skills, meaning these are skills that are required regardless of industry that you're in, whether you're in high tech or tourism or in the nonprofit sector, in the charitable sector. All of these are highly coveted skills. It also means that the bioeconomy is competing with every other industry verticals for the skills that are the most coveted and the most integral to the success of these companies. It's important to understand that, especially if you're a job seeker. Don't dismiss the client service aspects, the sales aspects, the leadership of committees or of volunteer endeavors that you have come up. Make sure you highlight those on your resumes, because as you can see, these companies really, really require them. What are the top HR challenges for the employers? So, and we're going to be talking about that with the employers on our panel in just a few minutes. The lack of qualified candidates is the first one. Number one, specialized skills and practical essential skills. 40% and 30%. The lack of qualified candidates is the number one problem, the number one HR challenge facing employers. It used to be insufficient capital. In other words, we don't have enough money to hire or to pay competitive rates. That is still obviously a very, very big need for many of the small and medium-sized enterprises. But the lack of qualified candidates and the insufficient talent pool has exceeded it in terms of how keenly felt that pain is. Loss of candidates to larger organizations, 16%. We know that a lot in the bioeconomy. The companies tend to compete with each other and cannibalize their ranks, which is Sometimes it's the only thing they can do, but obviously it just exacerbates the problem more because we have to backfill all of those positions. It doesn't increase the capacity of the bioeconomy for more skilled labor. And then finally, the lack of applicants. Not just the lack of qualified candidates, the lack of any applicants. So they're dwindling in numbers as well. So let's talk about our labor demand forecast by 2029. As I mentioned, we're going to need 65,000 employees that we will not have by 2029. The vast majority, because biohealth is by far the largest employer of the subsectors, 36,000 will be in biohealth, 14,500 in agrobio, 11,000 in bioindustrial, and 3,300 in biofuels or bioenergy. Now, what does this mean in terms of the subsectors? It's going to be most keenly felt in biohealth, but as I mentioned, some of these skills are agnostic, which means they're going to be looking for the other subsectors, and they're going to have to be better at marketing themselves into other industries in terms of being able to attract them. There's been often a case where the bioeconomy, you have to have a bachelor's degree in science as an entry-level ticket, or a college diploma in STEM in order to get in the door. There are going to be some employers that are going to have to look hard and fast on that. Is it easier and is it possible to reskill some people from other industries? Can you teach an accomplished salesperson in another industry enough of the science for them to sell your product or your concept or your service here in your company? Because otherwise, there's simply not going to be enough supply of STEM graduates to fill all of these jobs, and that's an actual fact. So where are the gaps in the labor demand? So as we mentioned in the 4 subsectors, combined manufacturing shows the greatest number of need within all 4 combined. In biohealth, though, R&D, those technical skills, obviously very, very important. 9,000 jobs that are going to be missing, or that are going to be lacking personnel by 2029. And then if you see the third one sharply behind the other 2 is management. And again, these are industry agnostic skills. But management of these companies in all of the areas that I mentioned, those are growing as well. So the subsectors are going to be competing with each other for this kind of talent, as well as with other companies in the same sector, and will have to do a better job of marketing itself to other industries if it has even a hope to fill these gaps. So here's the crux of some of the issues. You'd think that an industry that has so many talent gaps would get better at being able to attract the demographics that are so available to them. Over 60% of women who graduate from STEM fields, over 60% of graduates from STEM fields are women. 60% of graduates. Yet bioeconomy companies, the number of employees, only 34% of employees within bioeconomy companies are women. Why is that? Why is it that we're not attracting females to the small and medium-sized enterprises? Is it a lack of mentorship? Is it a cultural deficiency? Is it a lack of career progression? Is there a feeling of a glass ceiling? Lack of C-suite leadership? I think all of that anecdotally contributes to it, but we've got to get better at marketing and presenting the bioeconomy as a career of choice for our female graduates and the females that can occupy, again, those management positions. Visible minorities, only 20% within the bioeconomy. Internationally educated professionals. Here we're talking about immigrants, only 17%. Recent immigrants, 9%. Canada is welcoming 300,000 immigrants a year. We have an immigration policy that is the envy of most of the developed world. Why are we not attracting our fair share of this incredibly robust and important talent to small and medium-sized enterprises? Can that be blamed to the lack of HR expertise in some of these SMEs? I think so. Certainly, if you don't know where to look and you don't know how to recruit, you tend to recruit people that look like you, because that's how you market yourself, is to your own inner circle. And that doesn't diversify your company. So we have to get better at HR. We also have to get better at developing diverse and inclusive cultures. The last 2 statistics are incredibly troubling to me personally and professionally. With the level of awareness, as we started this entire session with Wendy paying understandable and laudable homage to our indigenous colleagues and the land on which we sit, we only have 1%, less than 1% of employees within the bioeconomy are Indigenous Canadians. Less than 1% are persons with disabilities. Why is that? Why is an industry that is dedicated to curing illness and feeding the hungry so bad at employing people with disabilities? Again, is that back to the lack of HR, the lack of sensitivity, the lack of experience? But all of these are untapped. These are talent pools that are easily available to us that we haven't been tapping. If we don't get better at it, there's no way we're going to fill those 65,000 jobs. We have to be better at people management, right? Science is the study of the natural world. Well, the only species on the planet Earth that studies anything is people. So science begins with people. Without people, there is no science, and we have to get back to that basics. What are the solutions? Some of them are things that some of you students who are joining us today have already experienced. Work integrated learning, cooperative education. That helps groom the unicorns that some of these companies so keenly need. Branding biotech as a career of choice. We are so bad at PR. We are so bad at PR outside our own industry to try to explain our processes in a simple way, to explain our industry and our career. Our industry pays often 20 to 30% more for the same types of jobs than other industries. We're fantastic corporate citizens. This is an industry that anybody would want a family member to join. We're laudable. And we're in the midst of a pandemic where it's the biotech industry that is in the midst of saving the world. We have to get better at branding ourselves. We have to get better at newcomers. We have to get better at finding them. We have to get better at training them. And we have to get better at bringing them in and having them add and alter our corporate cultures to being them more diverse and inclusive, to have that positive feedback loop. You start with a few newcomers and immigrants. They come and augment your culture and make it better so that you can welcome more and more. We have to get better at reskilling, upskilling, and new skilling. All of these people, these qualified candidates, we have to get better at university and college grads, learning those essential skills, people skills, sales, management, meetings, collaboration, communication, all of those things. We have to get better at it. We need to raise our HR game. Our scientists in these small and medium-sized enterprises have to put human resource management at the top of their priority scale, because that is like being in an oil business and not understanding drilling. It's ridiculous. And the metaphor isn't apt. I mean, again, science is done by people, not by microscopes by themselves, and not by petri dishes that are untended. It's a people game. If you don't become an expert at people, you can't do science. It's as simple as that. And then finally, we have to embrace from our souls the whole concept of diversity and inclusion. And we need to become experts in it. And we have a very short time to do it. So for those of you who are employers who are already embracing this, I'm hoping that you tell your story as employers of choice to show how diversity and inclusion have enhanced your businesses, emboldened your people and empowered your employees, and allowed you to attain your business objectives. I want to end on a little story. It was about 7 years ago. I was in Vancouver, and I was at a life sciences trade conference. And I was introduced to this person, Elizabeth Velasquez, at a trade conference. She came up to me and asked me if I was from BioTalent Canada, and she leapt into my arms. And I was unaccustomed to hearing or being greeted like that at a biotech conference. So I said, "Hi, can I help you?" And she told me her story. She was a graduate of the University of Lima, Peru, and she graduated with a master's in biotechnology. And like anybody who was passionate about her craft, she wanted to practice it. But as we know, as you may know, the bioeconomy of Lima is almost non-existent. It's a very depressed economy, and especially felt in the biotech. So like any smart researcher, she went online and looked for a country where she could practice her craft. And she came upon Canada with their jobs and the companies and the spirit of innovation. So she packed her bags. Where'd she move? To Vancouver, right here in Vancouver. And what did she do? Because she was industrious, within 6 months, she found a job at Semios Bio, of all companies, as a project manager. And she had distinguished herself so well. She moved through the ranks and was great. She was telling me all of this, and she said she had even gotten engaged to a Canadian living in Toronto. And I asked her if she was going to have to give up her career because she was moving to Toronto. And she said no. Semios Bio was so impressed with her that they were going to allow her to work remotely. And this was a time 6 or 7 years ago that we were not even thinking about any company working remotely, not like we are now. So I told her, I asked her, I said, "So why are you telling me all of this?" And she said, "Well, the research I did came to BioTalent Canada's website, which showed me all of these opportunities, and especially the ones here in Vancouver and in British Columbia. So I just want to thank you for making all my dreams come true." It's very powerful, and it's something we don't do enough of or think about enough of when we're in the bioeconomy. We change people's lives, not just with the products that we produce and the R&D that we do. We change people's lives by having them employed in vibrant, fun, interesting, forward-thinking organizations like Semios and the hundreds more that are in Vancouver and elsewhere across Canada. And we need to reconnect to that and understand that our teams are number one, and without them, we're never going to attain our business objectives. So that is enough for me. Let's get on to the panel, shall we? So today's panel, I'll ask my panel to start, my panelists to uncover their faces if they could, please, so that I can introduce you. I'll give you a little short introduction, just name and title, and then I'll hand it over to each of you to introduce a little bit of who you are and what you do. So first person joining us today is Handel Kim. Handel is the founder and CEO for AI for the drug discovery startup Variational AI. Secondly, we have Dr. Rahul Singh from Genome BC. Dr. Singh leads the agri-food and natural resource team at Genome BC. We also have with us Dr. Stephanie Wilworth of the University of Victoria. She's a full professor in biomedical engineering and holds a Canada Research Chair in biomedical engineering at UVic. And then finally, rounding out our panel is Dr. Darby Thompson from MS Canada. Darby completed his bachelor's degree in statistics at UBC, crossing town to complete his master's and PhD in statistics at SFU. And so I am going to, there we are here, as we have here. He is the president of MS Canada, Dr. Darby Thompson, that is, biostatistician and president. And now I am going to stop sharing my screen so I can see our illustrious panelists in all their glory. And we can start a little bit. Here we go. I see you all. So let's go across the thing and tell us a little bit of about yourself, maybe your little elevator pitch of who you are and why you're joining us today. What brings you here today and what challenges you're facing in your position. Let's start, ladies first. Stephanie, Dr. Wilworth, can you welcome aboard today?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, here at the University of Victoria, I run an active research lab that has about 20 employees. And then I also have a startup company that focuses on bioink called Axolotl Biosciences. I just finished a 3-year term as director of our biomedical engineering program this past June. So I've trained a lot of our students, and shout out to BioTalent because we've used it on both the Wilworth lab and at my company. And 2 of our former BioTalent co-ops are now full-time at Axolotl. And I'll drop in the chat a link to UVic is actually launching a new, speaking of training, Masters of Engineering in Biological Systems this fall, and also through a link to Axolotl. So I think here to talk about all aspects of training through hiring and all that.
Thanks for joining us today. So Darby Thompson, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for that fantastic keynote address. That was incredibly passionate call to action for us and among the best I've heard. I think you called out a lot of the thoughts that have been rattling around in my head. So thank you for that. So I'm here, I'm representing MS Canada. As Rob said in my brief introduction, I'm born, raised, and schooled in Vancouver. I did leave for 10 years to go work at our head office as my first job out of graduate school in Washington, D.C. And I moved back here in 2010 to start MS Canada. MS is a global contract research organization, and I lead the operations for our Canadian division. We work with researchers to design studies and improve the health of Canadians and people all around the world. Our clients are researchers from UBC, ministries of health, governments all around the world, the National Institutes of Health in the United States. We also work with local and global not-for-profits, like we've worked with Arthritis Research Canada, the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative, the PATH organization, as well as global and local to our Vancouver and Vancouver Island cluster, biopharma companies, industry partners, who are investigating new vaccines, drugs, devices, technologies to cure diseases and improve global health. Our mission is to deliver high-quality support to our clients and improve health through research. And the part of the mission for our Canadian division is really why I'm here today, which specifically our mission is to help bring the capability, talent, and passion of Canadians to the global research effort. We're currently hiring 29 positions in Canada. We're fully virtual everywhere in Canada, and we really want to try and reach out and into this talent pool of Canadians and bring them to the global research effort that MS is participating in.
Excellent. Let's go to Dr. Singh of Genome BC.
Hi, thanks, Rob. And also, I would echo same as Darby said. You highlighted very well why we are here, I guess. So I would not go into that. I'm representing Genome BC here. We are a contract research funding organization. We specialize in funding research that is focused on genomics, and we fund actually universities, nonprofit, for-profit organizations, as well as government organizations as well. Our organization is structured with a group called like Sectors Group, which is essentially contains experts in health and non-health as well. And I belong to the non-health segment of my organization. So we cover forestry, agri-food, climate change, fisheries, aquaculture, all those non-health sectors. But we also have a big connection with health via One Health, where like, any disease, for example, coming from animals and plants going into humans, we track that as well. So I'm going to be covering that aspect and very glad to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. And finally, Handel Kim rounding out our panel from Variational AI. I believe you're muted, Handel.
There's always that one person, so I'm thanks. My name is Handel Kim. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Variational AI, and we're pleased to be part of this panel today. We're based here in Vancouver, founded in September of 2019. We do AI for drug discovery. So our goal is to take early stage drug discovery from hit to lead optimization into preclinical, and turn a process that takes years into months, and then license these assets to biopharma. And our goal is to redefine the unit economics of drug development in order to improve patient outcomes across diseases that are and medical needs that are unmet. We are AI people. We take contemporary or state-of-the-art machine learning and apply it to the domain of drug discovery. 10 people, and we just closed a seed round. Well, not just closed, about 6 months ago, and we're developing our programs against COVID, going after SARS-CoV-2 on the main protease, as well as working on breast cancer in combination with the University of British Columbia. So very pleased to be here, and I'll be speaking about the need for bilingual researchers. And by bilingual, I mean fluent in the domain of drug discovery, chemistry, biology, biochemistry, etc., as well as in digital data and machine learning. And this is really an area that we think is key in the strategic development of the industry, not just in British Columbia, but globally and within the pharma and drug development world. So very happy to be here.
Well, and let's start with you, Handel, because quite frankly, I think you very succinctly showed that with artificial intelligence, this is a perfect example of where those barriers between bioeconomy and, for example, IT or ICT are breaking down. Because not only do you need to have a knowledge, as you mentioned, about biological systems, but obviously the digital economy and the digital technology is so important. So let me ask you right now, as a small and medium-sized enterprise, small, doesn't get much smaller than 10 people. Yeah. What is the biggest challenge you face, and how are you trying to overcome it?
Well, so the biggest challenge simply is recruiting. So getting the right people in. So we raised money and we were busy trying to spend it. And spending is mainly in headcount and getting the right people. So the challenges that we find, which are not specific to BC or Canada, but globally, is that the intersection of digital technologies in chemistry and biology is still relatively limited. And although it is growing and it's accelerating, if you see sort of the world of data and information technology, the world of drug discovery, these if there are two spheres or two circles, the Venn diagram is starting to converge a bit, and we're seeing more intersection. But what we do find is that that there is a growing understanding of the importance of digital technologies, specifically in machine learning and statistics, in order to accelerate an industry that needs to be accelerated. And literally lives are on the line, whether or not a drug can be developed from scratch and brought out to the market and through approval. And we've seen that in very stark relief with COVID. And the fact that we have these wonderful vaccines that have happened in warp speed, as well as therapeutics like Paxlovid or Molnupiravir that have come out in record time. And so really what I think we're starting to see is the understanding that there is a tremendous impact that people who work in both domains, when they work together, can accelerate enterprise of developing therapeutics.
Great.
And so that's the biggest problem that we face. And this is one of the reasons why we're here. And we're very happy to be based in British Columbia. There's a tremendous, resource and pools of talent here that we're very fortunate to be able to tap.
Great. Let's go on to a couple of our other panelists. Same question, Darby. What is MS facing right now, or what is your biggest? Obviously, some companies are also facing retention problems. Is that an issue for you, or is it mainly along the lines of recruitment?
It's both, and it's throughout our industry. So we sort of take over where Handel hands it off to us. Essentially, after the product is discovered, we help the companies execute it and validate that it's functioning as expected, and then they can take it off to market. And in our area, we are always challenged with recruitment. Our growth has been really dramatic in the past few years. So even without the shortage of staff, we would have been facing recruitment issues because we're constantly growing. We don't have a product. Our product is our people. The services we provide to our clients is what gives us value, and the quality of the people is what raises our profile among our clients. So perpetually, our challenge is recruitment. In the last couple of years, retention has become a secondary challenge, a secondary and critical challenge, but that is throughout the industry. I wouldn't say that retention for our company is any different than anybody else, but with the pandemic, with moving to remote, the geographic barriers between jobs are down, and people are able to move where they wish. And so that's actually been a bit of a boon for us. For being located in Vancouver, it was occasionally difficult to recruit people from outside of Vancouver to come here because of the cost of living. But we can now recruit everywhere across Canada. There's no requirement for geography, so somebody can live in the Yukon or in Yukon and be a fantastic employee for our group with broadband internet. Right. But that said, lots of people are looking to other global organizations now that they may not be constrained to we working in Vancouver. But the way we're addressing that, again, is to try and appeal to the new blood coming to the industry. We have lots of entry-level positions where we can bring people in, train them. I think you described very succinctly, for all of our jobs, except perhaps for biostatistician and bioinformatician, there's nobody coming out of school with a degree in the job that we're hiring for. There's no certification, there's no designation for the jobs that we're hiring for. They all come from internal training, skills and soft skills assessment, and us deciding where they're going to be a good fit, where the career path may lie, and the basis of any experience they may come with. For more junior staff, we really have to appeal to their sense of mission and our sense of, and our directive towards public health and global health is really how we're trying to address our retention issues and differentiate us from a lot of the other organizations in the market, as well as our focus on Canada. We really want to develop our staffing in Canada, but also our outreach to Canadian clients. It makes a big difference when you are working for a company like ours and you're helping a company up the street, or that you might see on social media from your local cluster. It makes a big difference to be in Canada and helping Canadian organizations. Either, we've worked with the BC CDC, with Fraser Health. That really is a value to the people that work here in BC for our company.
Thanks, Darby. I appreciate that. We'll be able to scratch a little deeper in a moment. I want to remind our audience that there is a Q&A here. You can click the Q&A and pose questions. I'll be taking a little look-see, and I'll be bringing the ones that we think that will foster some really good discussion forward to our panelists for review. Raul, from Genome BC, based on not only Genome BC itself, but also the companies that you work with, what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing out there?
So for Genome BC, I would say we have different functional units. So for example, we have finance, we have communications, education, and then the sectors group I work with. So our main product is actually money, which we disperse through our program. So for the sectors specifically, I would say that we need people who are not only qualified to understand or are expert in genomics, but also need to be expert in their specific sector. For example, if they're working in forestry or mining even as well, right? So having that combination so that someone has the scientific understanding, plus also business acumen to really understand our customers, our co-funders, value chain is very critical. And that's where I think we face challenge, then we are having all those quality in one person. And if I talk about from the perspective of companies we work with, so we work with, forestry companies, health companies, mining companies, and there, of course, in today's world, you can do work virtually, like as most of you are highlighting. But in for example, resource-based economy, to be in forestry or like on a mining site, you have to really go there and work on site. So that also becoming a challenge. But again, I think the understanding of technology and business always comes, which remains a challenge. So I would say if the focus at school or university is more on aside from teaching, science and technology, plus also some business aspect, that would certainly help to have this pool of talent be more suitable for jobs.
Right. So Stephanie, we'll finish this introductory round with you. From you, Vic, you're talking about obviously an institution that both requires talent and produces it. So you've got both from the supply and demand side an opinion on this. What are the challenges that you're finding from companies that come to you for talent, and what are the challenges that are facing your students that are graduating?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, and I think having both sides of the perspective. One of the things we do at UVic in our biomedical engineering program is we do work a lot with industrial partners. So we are actually now in our 4th year of offering human factors in medical device design course with Starfish Medical. And I think that's a really good course, and I think some of our students are in the audience, because they actually see what a biomedical engineer does at their job. And also through our co-op program, they can see what they want, and that helps them try on different jobs before deciding what they want to do. One of the things that I think on the employer side that, is that our biomedical engineers do have a lot of choice. Interestingly, having run the program and doing things for accreditation, half of our students go on to grad school and med school. And so I think that's things that, for example, employers here, and even on my company side, you're competing with some of those options of like, do I want to go to med school? Do I want to do this? And I agree with what Handel is saying, because I do think, and I think it's like one of the really cool areas of research is where you have with this intersection of computer science and biology and like the synthetic biology and programming cells. I think, that's one of the things to actually, now I'm going to get on a soapbox here, about diversity. Like our biomedical engineering program is the only one that is actually 50% women and 50% men. And I think it's because it's one of our newer programs, and the curriculum has been designed recently as opposed to some of the older engineering fields and even computer science. And so because of that, we do get a really diverse, and not just in terms of gender, but also in terms of other minorities, including Indigenous students coming there just because they can see biomedical engineering at work. And unfortunately with the pandemic, now everyone really appreciates the biomedical engineers. And also shout out to my friends across the way at UBC. I know Peter Zanstra and their new undergraduate program at UBC. We're trying, Rob, to address your talent shortage by producing them. And I think it's just a really exciting field. And just going back to what Handel was talking about, I do also recommend in my own, although it's been a while since I've been in school, I definitely took like 4 different programming courses and learned a lot of different languages. But I think like with Python and the open source-ness of that, like there's so many cool things you can do with that in terms of the biology as well as like in traditional computing. So that's sort of how I see we can improve, the diversity. We also have a pretty diverse mix at my company as well. And also it goes back to having an inclusive culture where you welcome people from all backgrounds. And honestly, again, on my soapbox, having directed the BME program, healthcare needs diverse perspectives. Women's health is chronically understudied. The pandemic has only highlighted the racial disparities that come in this field. And so you need all of those perspectives to actually address these medical challenges, to actually, do healthcare properly. So,
and those statistics that you're saying don't lie. And the fact that most companies, all the statistics show out the ones that have the more diverse, not just their employees, the diverse boards and diverse points of view do better. It's statistically proven. They've taken a look on the stock market and by almost any metric that you can do. So I really want to talk a little bit about. Sorry, Stephanie, was there additional stuff that you wanted to add there?
No, that was just, that's always one thing is that I'm like, because sometimes it comes up at the university, they're like, oh, how do you integrate these diverse perspectives? And I was like, you have to in healthcare if you actually want to design proper medical solutions. You need to design medical technology that'll work for everyone. So
And the democratization of healthcare is going to be a big issue in the coming year, not just on the people who practice it and the science that goes into it, but also on the receiving end. In terms of, obviously, the more that we have on the front end of diverse and inclusive, the more that healthcare delivery will be democratized. And I think that's true too. So let's talk a little bit about that inclusive nature. We have a good question here in terms of, I talked about a little bit about how 80% of the companies are less than 50 employees, and we have also large pharmaceutical companies. One of our questions comes from our audience members saying, why do so many biotech companies require skills that can essentially only be gained in large pharma companies, which force a lot of people to move to US for R&D down there, for clinical operations and reg affairs that were requiring 5 to 10 years of experience. How can we gain that kind of experience without leaving Canada? Who'd like to take this on?
I'll take it. You can apply for a job. Number one. So often, I mean, the person asking the question is hit the nail on the head. It's the classic catch-22. How do you get experience if you can't get a job without experience? And the positions that we're looking for are in such high demand that we are looking for people with skills to come in the door. If you come in the door and then you have a proclivity or capability in a service line other than the one you come in the door, there are training programs and opportunities to develop within the company that can gain you the sort of experience you're looking for. And just to touch on the first point, because I always, as I mentioned, I was part of the brain drain. I finished graduate school. There weren't the opportunities in Canada that there are now. And I left and I moved to Washington, D.C. because that's where clinical research was getting done. That's where I could be a statistician in a company doing tons of research for government and for pharmaceutical industry. And that's not the case anymore. So I would refute the fact that you would have to move to the States to get those kinds of jobs. They exist in Canada. There's pharma companies in Canada that hire. There's lots of CROs like MS that hire people in entry level and in senior positions in Canada that can work on these big global projects as well.
Great. Great. Anybody else want to weigh in on that, or is that? I think that's a pretty. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be maybe a little controversial. So move then, and then come back later.
And come back.
Yeah. If you want to be, a big movie star, well, you pretty much have to move to Hollywood. You want to be a fashion, icon, you probably need to move to Paris or whatnot. You can always come back. The fact is that the world of pharma is international.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Handel. And it's something that when you were talking about being bilingual, we see that in people all the time, because more than half of the employees that we've hired in the last 2 years are new Canadians. And for more than half of our company, English is not their first language. But that doesn't matter, because we all speak clinical trials. We all speak clinical research. And they might be coming with graduate degrees or research experience from other countries, the US, or even if they left their home country, got experience somewhere else, and then became Canadians. They're really well suited to integrate with our company here because they've already been trained to speak the language of the work we do.
So let's talk about some of those roles that don't necessarily require the 5 to 10 years of R&D experience, or even a PhD in molecular biology or something in order to be valuable. I'm talking about some of those roles that I talked about earlier, where marketing, administration, finance, and some of those others. What can we be doing in the bioeconomy to increase awareness and attractiveness of those opportunities? I mean, when you're talking about either people that have STEM backgrounds or don't, they don't necessarily think of the biotech industry as a marketing hub, right? Or as a place where financial professionals can find valuable careers. So what can we do better for that? Is anybody who would like to weigh in? Don't make me call.
I'll just maybe start the discussion that, certainly, in high-tech industry, you sometimes often need specialized qualification, but then there are, as you mentioned, administrative aspects of project management. For example, in our space, I can say, is one area where if there is no master's degree, even someone has bachelor's degree with decent understanding of technology we work with, they could fit very well in doing project management. And finance, my observation is, or understanding is that there's a different beast. What I have heard is that in finance, people don't really have issues with job. You can choose who you want to work with. Whereas for us, on the technology side, you really have to find specific talent or qualification that you're looking for. But project management certainly is one aspect. And communication is actually another aspect, right? Because communicating science coming out of a lab and going to like an end user, like, is a big challenge. And I know I'm a scientist, and it took me a while to really do that. I'm not really even best at that right now, but then there are people who are very good communicators, and they can play a big role in communicating what's coming out, for example, from Stephanie Lab to, Handel's group, to really transform that, like, translate in a very easy and simple fashion, and also create value that way.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head on a communications thing, and I think that's what we're going to go to next. But in a communications, I had to wait until I entered the bioeconomy to understand that a PowerPoint should have 22 bullet points in 11-point font on it. I didn't realize that was the key to a really great PowerPoint deck, but now I do. So there
More
we go.
formulas, the better.
Exactly. I found that out. So how do we talk, Stephanie? You mentioned in your opening remarks that we lose biotech students later on in graduate to some other professions. Not that obviously medicine isn't a noble profession, but certainly we have some of our students that are going to other industries and are not necessarily finding their career here with us. So with STEM students and even beyond, how do we communicate the opportunities that exist within the bioeconomy better to our young people?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things, like with our company, and we do have, our company is pretty much mostly recent grads and some still undergrads or co-ops. We have like an intern who does social media, and that gets a lot of outreach. I've gone on a few podcasts. There's one called Medtocracy that's run out by students out of Guelph. And like I found that reached like a whole different demographic. So I think that's something that companies could do better, is going on some of those things. Because I know that we're, as the grownups, we're on LinkedIn and stuff like that, but what actually is reaching the people who are currently in undergrad is some of the things like podcasts. We have our company has an Instagram and a TikTok, and I think those are some of the things that people really use to get the message out. I do think there's a UBC professor in biomedical engineering who has gone viral on TikTok with some of her messaging around pandemics and things like that. It's just sort of spreading the word about your company, because a lot of these, I'm sure that the other company founders can talk about this as well. You come from an academic background, and I used to think this, and I laughed very hard thinking about Stephanie in undergrad now. You're like, oh, I'm the best engineer. Our design project was the best. It's going to speak for itself. Like, why do I need to write this report? Why do I need to make a PowerPoint? Like, look at it. This is clearly the best design. And now as a grown-up, all I do is write grants and give PowerPoints and talks. And you're like, oh my gosh, communication is really, really important. And so I think that's something that the companies can be better at marketing, what they do. And actually, as I said, like with a Starfish class, it's good for them, because like the engineers come in and they're like, this is my job. And so the student's like, oh, okay, that's what it's going to look like when I go there. And I'm working, 9 to 5 on this project. And so actually, sort of, it's sometimes I say about engineering, we have a marketing problem because engineering is awesome. It's just really like convincing the students, like, this is, a viable career, and you're going to do interesting things. And well, hopefully benefiting humanity, like through improving healthcare. So.
Right.
So
that's what.
So,
oh, sorry. Go ahead. No.
I mean, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we know. Rob, you mentioned this, and I think Wendy also touched on it before. The primary obstacle for the creation of jobs in the bioeconomy was lack of capital. Well, that's not the problem now, and I think you've heard a uniform sort of response that we need people, and your data shows that very convincingly. If there's, I can speak as an entrepreneur who's close to seed round, there's a lot more money out there now than I've ever seen, and we have this dearth of jobs. Why don't you start a company? And entrepreneur might be the best way for you to employ yourself. The fact of the matter is if it's so hard for you to get a job and go get paid, a certain salary at a company, and you have to compete against 100 people for the spot, why not start a company? If you have that domain knowledge, you have that idea, and you have a network of people who can help, and you have these soft skills that we're all talking about that help you in your business career, why not just cut out the middleman and go and start your own company? It's not for everyone, and you'll fail, but the experience that you gain will make you invaluable if you decide to go on with your career in industry. It's a really good time to start a business. And I come from the tech world, And in software, there's a much lower barrier of entry to start a business. However, the fact is that there is now enough seed capital, there's enough grant money, there are enough programs such that the bioeconomy, if you're a grad student, you have a great idea, you see this unmet need, and you have the scientific understanding, go find someone who can help you and then start your own company and become the next AbCellera. We need more of these companies here in BC, and that in turn will generate a critical mass of employers and high growth enterprises. And so start your own company, be the next, Carl Hansen, be the next, Ali Tarani, be the next, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to say, speaking as someone who did that from the academic side, who probably had to be dragged, like had a company dragged out of her kicking and screaming, for all of the undergrads and graduate students and postdocs, Canada has, so first of all, your school probably has an incubator. Here at UVic, it's Coast Capital. Definitely get in touch with them because there's tons of support out there. Also, again, if you are in school and you are working on a project with a professor, like this is how my company came about. There's a program through NSERC. There's even one that's before the Idea to Innovation one where you can get $20,000 to just see, and they'll help you. NSERC will pay you to work on the project and they'll pay to do the market research called Lab to Market. You then leverage that into Idea to Innovation, which is $125K, which will help cover some of your patent costs. In our case, we actually received funding from Michael Smith and the Pacific Parkinson's Institute, as well as the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, to take our BioInc to market. And so there are these established pathways to support you that will all help you de-risk the process as well. And so, and the other thing is, it will also tell you if your idea isn't viable. You might do the market research and realize, oh, this isn't worthwhile. But I think that that's a way to de-risk it. And at least on our end, it was not that painful to start a company because we had all the pieces in place to actually do it. And so there's and also the other thing I should give a shout out to, because I'm a mentor there, is Creative Destruction Labs. And again, a lot of these things will help you think through your idea and refine them. Yeah.
So we've
I'll just add.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just add that, fully agreeing with Handel and Stephanie, as a funder also, we fund all the incubators in BC. So at UVic, at UBC, SFU, and there are also courses now available. So for example, Invention to Innovation that Alicia Main started at SFU BD is really a transformative course where graduate students can just undergo the process of creating a company and seeing the process launch that. So there are unique opportunities available in the ecosystem right now.
So let's talk about some of the underbelly of this, some of the stuff that a lot of biotech companies, especially in recruiting, don't want to talk about. Why are we so bad at recruiting people, diverse workforce? Why are we so bad? The numbers don't lie. We have an adequate supply of female employees, and we're doing a lousy job of attracting them. We have an adequate supply of immigrants, newcomers, Canadians with disabilities, and we're doing a lousy job of recruiting them. So let me ask you, is this because of our lack of HR expertise, that we have scientists doing HR? How do we get better at this in a way where we can convince the decision makers in companies like the size of yours, Handel, that they need to get better at that? So Handel, let me throw it to you first, and then weigh in, because it's a controversial topic, and it's a seedy, ugly underbelly of the bioeconomy, that, right? And says the middle-aged white guy who's moderating the panel, right? So here we go. Let's start with you, Handel, and let's see if we can flesh it out a bit.
I mean, so speaking as the middle-aged Asian dude here, most of the people we bring on, because the fact of the matter is that we are, largely machine learning driven, most people identify minorities. We have maybe half the company is recent immigrants, and that's not through any design. These are the people with the qualifications and have gone through the rigorous selection process. People talk about sort of this supply issue in terms of qualified women candidates, or qualified Indigenous candidates, or qualified BIPOC candidates, and there might be some truth to that, but at the same time, there's also sort of, speaking as a startup entrepreneur, I mean, we were 5 people until a few months ago. We're doubling in size, which is a huge growth for us, but very trivial. The fact of the matter is as a small business operator, you're largely thinking about trying to hire and retain or hire the best people possible. And despite my tremendously strenuous efforts to try and influence the hiring process to women, and to get, I mean, that's really where we fall very flat on our faces, is in the machine learning and AI side. There's a fundamental sort of there's a lack of diversity there, which I actually tried to address in my capacity at AINBC and the Project Athena Pathways program. And we developed this program to get more opportunities for women in data science, machine learning, and AI. So there's that aspect, and we did actually try and recruit this wonderful candidate, and she was amazing, but we couldn't compete with the other employer in Toronto, which is a very large bank. And so the supply side obviously is we can do more, but at the same time, for a small business, it's very difficult for us to have a dedicated HR function, and it excuses, and to a certain extent I am, but we're trying to hold ourselves responsible to, we've signed up for the 50/30 program, promulgated by ISED, and I think we're okay on the people of color, but we really lack the diversity on from women. I'm hoping that as we move into biology and as we move into non-machine learning areas and start hiring more people from that there seems to be, at least anecdotally that I've observed, a much greater representation of women in these areas. And I don't know I'm not going to sort of plumb the reasons why, but it's going to be very important for us to be able to bring on greater diversity, whether it be transgender or whether it be women or whether it be other underrepresented areas of or communities. But it's very hard as a startup entrepreneur when you've got to do all of these other things, and so it has to become front of mind, and it can't just be at the CEO level, because I've been banging on this drum a lot. It has to be filtered down to the hiring level, and even though we're a small company, it's difficult to try and push that, and it's a process, and I think we need to do better, and I think we just need to keep banging the drum until obviously we start going, yes, this is a fundamental qualification, this is we need to bring into the company, because greater diversity shows much better business outcomes.
No, I understand that. So how do we do that? Let me open it up to our other panelists to see if there's anything else. So
I guess I should probably talk on this, since I actually have a startup that is gender diverse, and we have a number of minority groups. Although I hate that, because like on my lab and the company, we have internationally competitive tech. So I actually get a bit sensitive when people bring up that we actually have diverse representation in our group, because I don't hire because we need diversity. I hire the best talent. And one of the things, and I can talk all day about this, having run a BME program, one of the things I think, especially for startups, there's a few things. One is, again, bandwidth limited, not having HR. Having recently graduated from the Boston Canadian Trade Accelerator, I will tell you, like I had a charmed existence as a startup founder, because I did like W Venture, which was like wonderful and all women, and then Life Sciences VC one, which was again about half women, and then I went to the Boston CTA, and I think there might have been one other woman CEO, but the first meeting, I was one of the only women on the company side, minus a press officer. And it was definitely a whole different vibe. And so I think when you're trying to get one of these things, and even in my own career as a woman in engineering, when you're accepting a job, you want to make sure that the workplace is going to be good and healthy for you. And so honestly, if it's a startup, they aren't sure, like they're less likely to take a risk on going to a startup where they might not be a good fit with the culture, or the culture might be actively hostile to them. Which you can see. And so, a lot of the reason why I've been able to achieve it in my lab and in my company is, word of mouth, knowing that people are being treated fairly. There's still, I don't think I have to quote this to, gender discrimination against minorities in terms of pay, and things like that. And so, people just want to work in a place where it has a good, positive environment. And honestly, even if you are in the majority, I mean, I've seen companies where, it's all white men and they all treat each other terribly, and it's not a good company culture. So I think having a good company culture, having a mission that people can believe in, and word of mouth is good, but also there are other things you can do. Running your job ads through the gender calculator to make sure that you aren't unintentionally putting off women. And I'll say, even at UVic, some of the job ads we put out initially, I mean, I even had, like, because of what our HR required at UVic, I had even men asking me, they're like, oh, this must be for an internal candidate because the job ad was just written really poorly. So I think looking at some of that, like making your job ads more broad, running them through the gender thing that says, whether or not you're unintentionally biasing your applicant pool. Advertising widely, I think, is helpful. The other thing you can do, again, at universities like UVic, UBC, we have a women in science group, we have a women engineering group. And so sending your company reps out to go there and talk about their jobs. So again, the other thing is for students, being able to see themselves working at your company, knowing what you do and thinking that's something they want. Then that's, other ways I think to sort of do this that aren't, taking too much time away from, like the core company mission. And then, other things that, advertising broadly, and, going out there about it, sponsoring, some of the coding events, all that sort of thing shows that your company is committed to, inclusivity, as well as creating a culture where that's appreciated. So.
Well, then you make an interesting thing. I'm hoping that also the supply, before, up until now, because it was there was way less supply than way more supply than there was demand. There was so much unemployment amongst some of our STEM grads for years and years. It was very much a buyer's market. Companies didn't have to diversify in order to attract the talent they need. Now they do. And I'm hoping the employees will take some of that power back in their hands, where they ask the questions and do their research and force the companies that are looking for the talent, that want the talent, to up their game from an HR perspective. Do you think the companies are going to be willing to do that? Do you think we're in a position where that are we going to be forced to up our game and get better at either, to your point, Stephanie, democratizing our recruitment tactics, making it wider and making it a more level playing field? Or do you think science companies are going to continue, Handel, as you mentioned, just finding the talent as quickly as possible because we have to commercialize, and that's our number one priority? I'll look to Darby or Raul to step in to answer. What do you think?
Oh, I think absolutely. You're going to have to diversify and broaden your net to survive. Otherwise, you will not be able to get staff. Just a very quick story about our organization. First of all, again, it's unfortunate I'm the middle-aged white guy, but I report to a woman and she reports to a woman, and most of the staff that I work with are women. And also, but the proudest moment in my career, truly and honestly, was we started the Canadian division with just me. And 6 or 7 months ago, we have a social meeting every month just to get everybody together on Zoom. We play a game, we do a sharing, and there's a different host every week. And the host that week chose to ask everybody, what country were they born in, or their parents, if they're a first-generation Canadian. And literally, of the 35 people who were on the call, 5 were multi-generation Canadian. The other 30, they or their parents had come from elsewhere in the world. And just seeing the map of this diversity of voices that we brought together at this organization, because I decided to move home to Vancouver and open the doors, and these are the Canadians that joined us, was just remarkable. That all these voices from around the world have joined together in Canada as part of our company. It was just incredibly satisfying. I'm very proud of our efforts. I will say that our diversity grew significantly when we more formally engaged our talent group globally. So we are a global organization. We have a large talent group, but we've got talent, HR on the ground in Canada helping with our recruitment. And I would say once it's out of the hands of the technical people, who are frankly more likely to be exposed to people like them, and more in the hands of professional HR or recruiters, there will be broader exposure and more depth and diversity in the candidates that you'll be seeing.
Okay, great. I'm keenly aware of time, my panelists, so I'm going to ask you to be succinct in this final question. And the final question is, if you could give, because we have a lot of students and a lot of job seekers in our audience today, if you could give, as a prospective employers yourself, one piece of advice on how they could better market themselves to you or other companies within the bioeconomy, what would that be? And please be succinct. Let's start with Raul.
Okay, I would say look beyond your skills. Soft skills are very critical, so make sure you have the soft skill as well in addition to your talent when you go to any job interview or look for any or apply for any position.
Great, thank you, Stephanie.
I would say just well, if you're looking for jobs, to just check out some of the organizations like Life Sciences BC, Vancouver Island Life Sciences, just because I think there's a lot more companies out there than just what you see advertised on your co-op job board. And also keep your resumes to like one page because everyone's busy.
Right. We don't like editing in the bioeconomy, right? We have a problem with it. I don't know why. Great content generators, bad editors. Darby, to you.
For us, we are looking for such a broad base of skills and expertise, including soft skills. For us, it's and companies like ours, it would be about emphasizing the mission. We are all about going on offense in health and improving. And I feel like that's going to attract talent that has a choice of industries to go to. You can make a difference in people's lives every single day, no matter what you do.
And finally, Handel.
Tenacious. So I find that a lot of people who work who are scientists, they send in a resume, they don't get a response after 2 months, and they assume there's no interest. The fact is that a lot happens, that the person may not have actually looked at the resume, or maybe they did, but they didn't have time to get back. So follow up until they say no. Honestly, I'm gobsmacked by the number of times people say, I emailed them and I never heard back, so I just assumed. That doesn't cut the mustard. You got to be tenacious. If you really want the job, go after it. And until someone says, stop contacting me, more likely than not, they'll be like, this person's very tenacious. That's a good trait that we want. And if I don't have a job, then maybe I know someone else who does. If someone says no, thank you, then ask them, do you know someone else who might be hiring? Be tenacious and network. And it's a lack of response doesn't mean that they're not interested. It just means that they probably have a lot of burning resolve first, and you're not at the top of the deck.
I think you're so right. Hit the nail right on the head there, Handel. For an industry that lives and breathes innovation, and 90% of the products never come to market. Tenacity is pretty much a pretty big priority for us. All of my panelists, I want to thank all of you for coming today. It was a great week. There's never enough time when we're talking about HR and people and skills. You're all very passionate about it, and I thank you for bringing your passion to the discussion. Stephanie from the University of Victoria, Handel from Variational AI, Darby from MS Canada, and Raul from Genome BC. For our audience, look at these companies. Take a good look at these organizations. They are hiring. They are trying to set themselves apart as employers as well. And I invite you all to reach out. I hope this was a good forum for all of you to also talk about your employers as well. It's a great topic. It's going to be one that's going to be continue to be raised for the coming year. I think LSBC's success in getting over 800 people to this forum just screams exactly how high on the priority list this topic is. So, Wendy, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you very much for the podium and for this very intriguing and forward-thinking discussion. And you are muted.
My goodness. Thank you, Rob and Stephanie, Raul, Darby, Handel. Really, really great discussion. Rob, I want to go back to the beginning of this session, and your overview of the labor market was very, very insightful. I'm sure that there are many themes that resonate with our attendees. And I was reflecting as you were talking on the original goals of this event. Rob and I got together about three and a half years ago when we thought we might do an event such as this. And there were a couple of things that ended up coming up in your labor market study. One of them was about demystifying what the life sciences sector was and what the bioeconomy was. And we had a theory that, everyone was needing talent, and the science people weren't talking to the business people, and the business people weren't talking about the science people. And we really wanted to create that opportunity and demystify it. The other was to profile the breadth of careers in life sciences. I had met a number of people that were PhDs in microbiology, chemistry, you name it. They realized they didn't want to be a professor, or they wouldn't become a professor, and they realized they didn't necessarily want to work in a lab for the rest of their life. And they had these moments where they were like, so what can I do with my 8-10 years of education? And so we really wanted to show that. And that's what resulted in a session that's later today where people talk about their career paths and the journeys that they took. And so it's very interesting that it all comes back to a labor market study that says a lot of the same things of what we've been trying to achieve. So with that, I just want to say there are endless opportunities in British Columbia's life sciences sector. While I have I'm going to take the shameless opportunity to promote BC right now because we continually have people register, and we're now up to 18 countries that are in attendance. So we have endless opportunities. As a scientist, a researcher, an innovator, an entrepreneur in multiple business functions, manufacturing, operations, AI, IT, the list goes on, obviously human resources. With these opportunities, we need to ensure that we attract and train the talent to meet these roles, both for today and of the future. We in BC are known for our world-class science being conducted at our academic and research institutions, which result in scientific discoveries and company creation. And critical to that company growth is obviously capital and talent. And as Rob mentioned, we used to talk about, well, does capital follow talent or does talent follow capital? Well, over the last 18 months to 2 years, BC has raised over $2 billion of capital. And now we need to fill these jobs that are being created as a result of this capital. So I would argue we are at the point now that capital is following talent. And so we need to be critically focused on addressing our talent gaps to both protect our jobs, but also create jobs in the future. In addition to our double-digit growth that we've been seeing in the province, we also see growth bolstered by the recently announced National Biomanufacturing and Life Sciences Strategy, which is resulting in significant investments in biomanufacturing across the country. And we in BC believe that we are extremely well positioned to address this gap by training the talent that is needed to fill these roles as we create many of these roles in British Columbia. So while I'm clearly biased, I believe that there is a very, very bright future for life sciences in BC and Canada, although again, I'm just going to be a little biased right now. So with that, again, thank you very much, BioTalent Canada, for being the presenting sponsor, and to Rob in particular for your passion and all your great work that you and your team do to support the bioeconomy. Thank you. And I hope everyone can join us for our next session, which starts in 3 minutes.